here we are in an undisclosed location in Highgate in Richmond, and I'm going to go and talk to David Farrant, the renowned author and vampire hunter.
Yeah. You know, we movies, Dracula, you know, probably the famous, or you know, many. I suppose people have tried to capitalise on the in the movie industry, say, on making horror movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very, very popular. Hammer horror films were extremely popular. I mean, off the top of my head, I believe they filmed in Highgate Cemetery. They filmed Taste the Blood of Dracula, The Body Beneath, 1969, Tales from the Crypt, Dracula AD, 1972. The list is quite endless. And of course people saw all these movies and they associated the figure that had been seen in Highgate Cemetery, identified it rather I should say, with the blood-sucking vampire, which of course it never was. And it's interesting that to this day people are still seeing this figure. It's still being seen. As recently as last year, I was talking to a lady that actually claimed she had an encounter with this figure by the top gate of Highgate Cemetery.
Is Highgate Cemetery the most haunted cemetery in the UK?
I wouldn't say it's the most haunted cemetery, but it's a lot to do with its location. It's situated on a very old piece of land. And in fact, the house that stood there before it, Ashurst House, which was demolished in, I think, 1930-ish, that actually stood on the land where Highgate Cemetery was actually built. And that house was actually haunted itself. They couldn't it was a huge house, it was very difficult to keep warm. They couldn't let rooms for long, people just left, they wouldn't stay there. And in the end it had to be demolished. So again, this comes down to the actual location, where the house was built, where Highgate Cemetery now stands.
I would say a cemetery, people are buried in cemeteries, giving a death sort of connotation is the right word maybe, or identification with I guess what I'm trying to say is when people pass on from this life, is that real, or is that just Hollywood, and is that just what we are taught to believe, that then we become something else, or you know? But what about, like you just said, there are today, but are those people, are paranormal ghosts, vampires dead?
Vampires do not exist, full stop. I'll tell you why they can't exist if you like. Because when matter dies, and this body is matter, when the spirit leaves it, it is just that, it crumbles to dust. It's rather like a snake, if you can imagine it, casts its skin and a new skin emerges underneath. That is the new snake, that is the new body. The old skin crumbles to dust and it's blown away by the wind. It's just as impossible for that snake to go back and re-inhabit its old skin as it is for a human spirit to go back and become a vampire. That's what I meant. That's what I'm trying to say, why it's impossible. If you're asking me a question about, yes, but what about spirit? Well, that is a question I wouldn't be vain enough to try and say I know the answer to. We don't know. But I can say as much as this, that I don't believe spirit, consciousness, when I say spirit, can die. Because you can't see it, you can't analyse it, you can't put it in a test tube, you can't conduct experiments on it. It is invisible. It's that invisible force which gives us all the power to live. Now that can't die because it's not really alive in the first place. It's immortal.
Yeah. What about the subconscious? Any thoughts?
Yeah. Subconscious, unconscious. When we start talking about the subconscious, then we're going on to theories. It's what Freud said, or then you go into some other explanation. He believed in the subconscious, the dream states. Then you go on to someone like Jung, who took it a step further, and he actually understood the importance of the unconscious minds. But even then, I would go beyond that a little. I would say, who says there's just 3 levels of consciousness? Who is it that says that? Then it's repeated again by the students in the universities. There might be dozens upon dozens of levels of consciousness within everybody. And I don't think we should be so quick to sort of try and categorise them. But it's all a part of, it still remains a part of human consciousness, the human psyche.
Still talking with David here, and we're going to have a 5-minute break. We were talking to David before the break about the levels of consciousness.
Yes.
And ghosts existing.
Yes.
So, can you answer a question about maybe ghosts exist on different levels of consciousness, or what do you think about that?
I was just going to say, as long as it's not too difficult.
Yeah.
But that is such a difficult question. I mean, that's something I've been trying to understand, not learn about, I mean understand, deeply understand, see, for some time. I said that consciousness is so very important. Ghosts, though, surely only can exist if this makes sense. Ghosts can only exist in consciousness. If you know what I'm trying to say. Because if we weren't conscious, we wouldn't even be aware that there are such things as ghosts, spirits, earthbound entities, spectres, whatever you want to call them. If you're asking me if ghosts are intelligent, I'm sorry, I'm not putting words in your mouth. Do ghosts have intelligence? That is something I don't know. I have said many times that ghosts, do you know, I really don't like that word ghost. It's what it conjures up in people's minds. It conjures up visions of figures in white sheets, clanking chains, making wooing noises and all that sort of thing. I'm just forgetting all that nonsense for the moment. Oh, I forgot. And carrying their heads. I have said, though, that ghosts, some types of psychic phenomena, can be just reflections from the past. They do not possess intelligence as such. People have said, well, in that case, how is it that ghosts can appear to someone, and appear to be trying to convey some message? They might have died in unhappy circumstances. They might have died with something being stolen from them. They want to recover something, and they're intent on conveying some direct message to their human counterparts. And that's where I have to come back to you and say, quite truthfully, I don't know if that sort of apparition actually possesses intelligence such as we recognise intelligence. There could still be reflections, apparitions from the past, from the past which was created by perhaps some traumatic event. I'm not denying that. But I don't think they exist in the Hamlet sort of way, when they're actually fully aware of human beings. I think they appear in cycles at different times, dependent on location, which is extremely important, and also dependent upon the sensitivity of certain witnesses. That's why only certain people tend to witness them.
Oh. What is reality to you, David?
What is reality?
Is there such a thing?
My God, that's such a loaded question. I don't think we know what reality is. Well, I will go as far as to say that I don't believe for 1 minute reality is what we consider to be reality, the material world, with all its suffering, with all its disease, with all its death, with all the atrocities that happen all over the world. I mean, nobody can deny that that they don't happen. But I'm going to pick up a newspaper, switch on the television, switch on the radio, listen to your people in the street. They do happen. Is that reality? I would say...
To some it is. To some it is. To some people, switching on the television, getting up and going to work.
Yeah. That is reality.
To some. Going back to your point, why I asked the question, I think you said some people can see ghosts, not everyone.
I did.
I'm going to put this out there. Only those lucky people that can maybe have experiences in their life which has shaped their personality in a way that their reality is different to the norm of reality, if there is such a thing as reality.
I think there's got to be reality. I just think that most people, without trying to condemn anybody or look down on people, are unaware of reality. Surely, where does reality go when we go to sleep? It's non-existent. All we have are dreams and memories, that's all. But we are talking about real reality, aren't we? Truth, spiritual reality.
Ghosts.
Yeah, but there's a difference between ghosts. As I said, they fall under the category of consciousness, and spiritual reality. I said ghosts are the product of consciousness in some form or another. Spiritual reality is what I tried to explain to you before. You cannot answer that question.
It's the unknown.
It's unknown, but it's there. Instinctively we know it exists because we are here. Other people are here. We see the children being born all the time. Where does that life force come from? It cannot come out of nothing, because it must have existed before it could have been created. If that makes sense. I told you this is a really deep subject. I do take it really seriously.
I look at your face, David, through your, looking into your eyes,
Yeah.
and know what you're saying is the truth.
Well, it's nice to hear that. I wish a lot of other people could pick it up so easily. I'm not saying I know the answers to anything. I don't, but I'll say I don't know. But I wouldn't be so conceited as if to say I know what reality is. I've seen reality. I would never say that because it's not true. I don't know what reality is, but I know the material thing we call reality is not reality as such. I suppose it all comes back to then that age-old question: does God exist? If he doesn't exist, end of question. There's no God. Finished. Then we're down to the level of the atheists. There is no God. Or the level of the skeptics. And believe you me, I've come across quite a few of them in my time, who believe there's no spiritual force that emanates us. Very simply, all I'm saying to you is there is a spiritual force which emanates all of us, every single one of us, nobody excluded. I can say that with absolute in the most certainty to you, because it's what I sense, it's what I believe, it's what I've gone through. It's been a long learning process from very early days, without being frivolous, from the days of looking for ghosts. But even then there was an urge to try and find out beyond, what are these images? Are they souls of the dead that have come back to impart some message? It's been such a long process.
Can I ask you how old you are?
Do you know that's the one question I never answer?
Okay.
I won't get into it.
Can I ask you
I'll tell you why.
that you will continue to do this?
I will continue. But let me just tell you why. It's because I do not accept the existence of material time. This moment is the same as it was billions of years ago. You cannot live in the future. You cannot die in the past. You can only live and die in what is in reality an eternal present.
Time doesn't exist.
It only exists in the material world. Of course it has to exist, but please don't confuse time with measurement. The measurements exist. The human beings come along and they'll measure time. In the old days it used to be by sundials. Nowadays it's by sophisticated clocks and the computer system and all that. But they're only measuring something which is taking place where no time exists. I know that's really complicated. But I really mean...
If we look at that for a minute and we say that our bloodline has come from somewhere.
Yes.
As we have veins and whatever we breathe, don't we? We have a heartbeat. Do ghosts?
That's what I tried to say to you before. I don't know. I really don't know.
And in not knowing, it's an answer to a question, or we're going to be looking for that answer to that question. At least in your lifetime, I will say, you'll go on.
I really believe, I'm absolutely convinced, we do live through this moment and on to the next life and on to the one after that. I also absolutely instinctively know that we came from somewhere. As I said to you before, something that doesn't exist cannot come into existence. So yes, I think it's an eternal movement, whether it's relating to human beings or whether it's relating to nature.
Going back to Hamlet.
Oh.
To be or not to be. Okay. And was it the ghost of Hamlet's father that came back to haunt him, wasn't it?
Back to get his revenge or something.
His revenge, right.
Yeah.
So, if we were to think about that for a little while and take it back to ancient Greece. Revenge, Oedipus the king, married his mother, killed his father. Stories of revenge, and death combined. Would you say it's given birth to, or when did it give birth to the study of ghosts? Or even I'd go further to say the study of the mind and intelligence and thinking for yourself.
That's important, thinking for yourself. I think in generations ago, I mean, we all know what people were like. They wanted to believe something, just like they wanted to believe in God, or gods. But it's human nature to sort of reach out for something beyond us, look for something beyond what we see around us in the material world. Trouble is, a lot of people get this easy, simple answer, and they're given religion, or rather religions, all over the world, different religions. It's basically the same thing. Worship God, you'll be rewarded, you're a good person. Worship the devil, and you will be punished and you'll go to everlasting fire. I don't believe that. I don't have the same concept of the devil. I don't believe for 1 minute there is a supreme force of evil with legions of helpers around him, who he sends out into the world, that is the devil, trying to steal, make deals with men for their souls, to tempt people away from God. I don't accept that. I do accept there's evil in the world, but those people are not devils, they're very much human beings. To summarise, I do accept the existence of an all-loving, life-giving, eternal, infinite power. Call it God if you must. I do accept that. I can't define it. If I could define it for you, I'd be misguided. It would be a lie. It would just be my conception of something I've read in a book. I don't know, but I know it exists. And I know in that sense, the devil, as such, has no existence. The only power of evil that can possibly exist on this earth is the power of the human mind when it is used wrongly. And that wrongful use usually involves a complete separation from the divine principle, if you like, God, that the human mind is drawing us towards it, is trying to make us come into contact with it.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
You've been interviewed before. I think you've been interviewed before by numbers of people.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would want to say that you've never said?
Is there anything No, I don't think there is. I mean, anything there might be, I've explained in my books, and I only find that out from what people they've misunderstood what I said. Or it's been distorted by the press, or it's been misunderstood. That's the only way I ever think something. I didn't mean that. They've taken it the wrong way. I wish people would understand what I'm really trying to put across. I'm not trying to convert anybody. I don't claim to be a guru or anything like that. I really don't. I don't want to be. I just want to be a humble person who's striving out with others, looking for reality and truth. That is all. Simply that.
Has anyone ever called you a revolutionist?
If they did, then I might really get angry. And I don't usually.
Has anyone ever called you a genius?
No, they don't, actually. Because usually what I say contradicts what they've been taught to believe. And people don't like that.
I am honoured to have been able to ask you these questions.
You're most welcome.
I must apologise if I've asked any wrong questions.
You haven't. I've just tried to answer you as truthfully as I can.
But I think, like you, there are no wrongs or right questions sometimes.
Well, I think you've done very well because we're dealing with such a complicated subject.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for the interview.
Wow. So, we've just been talking to David Farrant, and this is the famous cemetery. Here we are.